and 1.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and you're very welcome to today's Licensing Subcommittee, which is being held on Wednesday, the 9th of November 2022. And my first task is as the presiding person, is to ask for the nominations for the election of chair. So, members, do we have nominations for the election of chairman for this meeting, please? Thank you.
Yes,
Councillor Farr.
Yes, I'd like to nominate you, Councillor Batt.
Councillor Farr, do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Flagg. Thank you very much. So elected, then we will go on and we will ask our clerk, Mrs. Cutler, if she kindly take us through housekeeping. Thank you, Mrs. Cutler.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the Chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the Chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please raise your hand. Please note. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cutler. Very important. Those phones are just turned off. I've just done mine. So apologies. I believe we have no apologies, Mrs. Cutler.
No, none received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on then to declarations of interest, I will ask our members if they have any declarations of interest. Councillor Flagg, any declarations of interest?
No, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Farr, any declarations of interest?
No declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on then to item 4, which is the stated protocol for public speaking. This revised protocol is in your packs for your reference, and it's been circulated to everybody with our agenda sheet just to see that it has. Yes, no hands. Okay, Mr. Serkin, you have your hand up. Could you take your hand down, please? Otherwise, I won't know if you're wanting to speak.
I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much. If you just lower that. Then moving on then to item 5, which is the substantive, which is the application for premise licence at Premier Westover Road, Bournemouth. And an application has been received for new premises licence for the premises known as Premier Westover, which is 12 Westover Road, Bournemouth, BH11PE. And this matter is brought before the Licensing Subcommittee for determination today. So I'll now ask everybody if they'd like to introduce themselves, and I would be very happy, please, if our members would like to advise us as to which ward they represent. I think people always like to know that. So I'll start with myself. My name's Councillor Jude Butt. I am the chair of the Licensing Committee, and I'm chair of this subcommittee for the purposes of today's business. And my ward is Hilbourne, Creekmore and Waterloo. So moving then to Councillor Farr. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Councillor Farr. I represent Kinston Ward, a member of this subcommittee this morning.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor David Flagg, member of the Licensing Committee and representing the Burton Grange ward.
Indeed, in lovely Christchurch. Thank you very much. We've also got today with us, and thank you very much for attending our reserves, Councillor Dave Kelsey and Councillor Toby Johnson. I know that Councillor Kelsey is very busy with his Poppy appeal, with his military input there, and I know that Mr. Johnson, or Councillor Johnson, is off at another meeting. So we will allow you to leave, but just in case for the next meeting, if you could just be on the end of a phone, just in case you are needed, but I doubt it. But thank you very much for attending as our reserves today. It's much appreciated. Moving on then to Mr. Ramsey.
Yes, good morning. David Ramsey, licensing consultant, representing Mr. Yildirim.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. And Mr. Yildirim?
Hi, my name is Serkan Yildirim. I'm the application applicant and passing on.
You are indeed. Thank you very much. And we have Mrs. Busfield.
Yes, good morning, Chair. Louise Busfield, Licensing Officer, Dorset Police.
Thank you. And we also have with us today Sergeant Gosling.
Good morning, Chair. Just trying on the camera. Yeah, good morning, Chair. Sergeant Gosling from Dorset Police Licensing, just here supporting Louise today.
You're supporting and observing. Thank you very much. We don't have Sarah Watson with us, who was our representative from YMCA. She's unwell, so our best to her. We don't have Mr. Corsica with us either, so as an objector, we will be making sure we raise the correct questions for him. But we do have Mr. Old. You're very welcome, Mr. Old, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, good morning. Yes, Samuel Old, and I'm a retailer on Westover Road for Robert Old and Company.
Or
Robert Old.
for Robert Old. Oh, for Sam Old Robert Old. That would make
Yeah.
sense, wouldn't it? Okay, thank you very much. Lovely. Okay, and do we have Mr. Kinniv yet? No? Not arrived. Okay, Mr. Kinniv is from Bournemouth Town Centre bid. It may be that he's going to have a late arrival. Mrs. Cutler.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Cutler and I'm the clerk to the Licensing Subcommittee today.
Thank you. And Mary Almeida.
Hello, I'm Mary Almeida and I'm legal advisor to the subcommittee today.
Thank you. And Sarah Rogers.
Good morning, Sarah Rogers. I'm Senior Licensing Officer for BCP Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before I run through procedure, I'll just check that everybody who has given notice of their intention to speak has indeed been identified. And if anybody wishes to withdraw that representation now, if they just want to show, I'm not seeing a show of hands, so I'll take that everybody's content. So I'll take us through our proposed procedure for order of speaking today. It's quite simple. The licensing officer will present her report. Our applicant will make their application. There'll be questions of the applicant by all party, and elected members will take questions first. Responsible authorities and other persons will make their representations, and today that is the police and Mr. Old, our objector. And questions of the responsible authorities and other persons will then take place with the members taking those questions first, and all parties will be given the opportunity to sum up with the party who spoke last to go first. And then I'll conclude the hearing, and we will then adjourn. We will actually not then adjourn. We will adjourn at the end of the meeting with our legal advisor to make that decision. But notification of the subcommittee decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations, and that is 5 working days as of today. And the notification decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate, and I will ask our legal advisor at that time to advise us as to the right of appeal. So I'll now ask everybody if they are content with that proposed procedure. Mr. Ramsey?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Yildirim?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
And Mrs. Busfield?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chair.
We don't have Mrs. Watson with us. We don't have Mr. Corsica with us. Mr. Old?
Yes.
Thank you. And we don't have Mr. Kinniv. Mrs. Almeida?
Yes,
Are
thank
you
you.
so
Yes,
content
thank
to
you,
us,
Chair.
thank you?
Yeah.
And Mrs. Rogers?
Yes, thank you.
So now just a final warning, please, or a reminder that all parties speaking do not repeat the information which they've already given in writing, but please to expand on that written representation, and all questions please to come through the chair, and no cross-examination of parties. So I will now ask our licensing officer, please, Mrs. Rogers, if you would present your report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is an application made by Mr. Yildirim for a premises licence to permit off sales of alcohol between the hours of 6 AM and 3 AM each day of the week. As a result of the consultation, Dorset Police, as a responsible authority, and 4 other persons made representations under the grounds that to grant the application would undermine the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm licensing objectives. No representations were received from any of the other responsible authorities. Following receipt of the representations, the applicant engaged the services of Mr. Ramsey. Amended conditions were subsequently proposed, and a reduction to the requested terminal hour from 3 AM to be reduced to midnight has been offered. These proposals were consulted with those who had made a representation. However, none of the representations were subsequently withdrawn. Should this application be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with the licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any of the responsible authorities or any other person may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rogers. So I will ask now if there were any questions on points of fact with regard to Mrs. Rogers' report. So I will ask first our members. Councillor Flagg, any questions on points of fact?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Farr, any questions on points of fact?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Ramsey?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Yildirim?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Busfield?
No, thank you.
And Mr. Auld?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Rogers, as always, for a very concise report. So now it's our applicant's opportunity to put forward their application. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. You have the floor.
Yes, good morning. On preparing for this hearing and considering the concerns that were raised by the representations, I decided it would be useful to visit the area of the proposed licensed convenience store. As I'm sure you're aware and agree, Westover Road is one, if not the main tourist shopping roads in Bournemouth, situated opposite the beautiful Lower Gardens. About a week ago, on a Friday morning, sunny morning, I walked the length of Westover Road, approximately a quarter of a mile. I was shocked to identify no less than 9 vacant retail premises, one of them the huge empty Odeon cinema. I was also shocked to witness several rough sleepers in the doorways of these vacant shops. Not, I'm sure you would agree, an inviting sight or boost for the reputation of our town by tourists or residents. I then walked from the square along Old Christchurch Road, again approximately a quarter of a mile, a road that has licensed convenience store near its junction with Firvale Road, OCR off licence. Members of the committee, it was interesting to note that during my walk there were more rough sleepers in Westover Road, with none within 100 metres of the OCR off licence, which begs the question, what is the biggest attraction for these people? Is it the doorways of empty premises, or is it licensed premises, such as off sales? Indeed, in the statement of Sergeant Janes, which you have a copy, the neighbourhood policing team, he lists numerous incidents dealt with in the gardens over the past year, and nowhere in the list is alcohol or alcohol-related antisocial behaviour mentioned. I understand the concerns of issuing an alcohol licence in town centre areas, and from my previous career in Dorset Police, fully understand the point of view in relation to considering such licences. I do, however, feel that, as highlighted in the revised Home Office guidance, every application, wherever it is situated, should be treated on its own merits. And I quote section 942, which I'm sure you're all aware of, under the heading, determining actions that are appropriate for the promotion of licensing objectives. It states, licensing authorities are best placed to determine what actions are appropriate for promotion of licensing objectives in their areas. All licensing determinations should be considered on a case-to-case basis. They should take into consideration representations or objections from responsible authorities and other persons, and representations made by the applicant or premises user, as the case may be. I believe considering this application on its own merits is extremely important, especially when it has been made by a retailer who has for many years experience in alcohol sales and has proved himself to be a responsible retailer of alcohol in some of the most challenging areas in Bournemouth and Poole. From 2005 to 2010, Mr. Yildirim operated the Boscombe Superstore, a 24-hour licensed convenience store in Christchurch Road, at a time when this area had serious alcohol-related problems. During this time, he maintained an excellent reputation as a responsible retailer of alcohol. A current operator still turns to Mr. Yildirim in a consultancy role for advice. He then moved to London, where he married his wife, a solicitor, and continued his work in the licensed trade. In 2015, Mr. Yildirim took over Parkston Food and Wine in Ashley Cross in Poole, a shop that previously had issues regarding alcohol-related problems and rough sleepers. Very quickly, Mr. Yildirim, and supported by his staff, rectified this situation. Members of the committee, I have submitted several letters made by customers and neighbouring retailers, which outline the responsible way Parkstone Food and Wine is run and support his application. These are available should you wish to view them. It is clear to see that Mr Yildirim's management is in somewhat difficult areas of Bournemouth and Poole have not only shown him to be capable, but also extremely responsible in all dealings in the sale of alcohol. He has, however, acknowledged the concerns highlighted in the letters of representation. Despite his obvious skills and experience, he is willing to listen and take advice, and has now offered a revised list of steps to ensure that he meets the 4 licensing objectives. Within these steps, he has ensured that both the front and the rear of his premises are covered by CCTV, areas highlighted as being used by rough sleepers and alcohol and drug abusers. He has also offered a condition that no single cans or glass bottles of beer, cider, lager or alcopops should be sold, with the exception of those of 500 millilitres or more in volume. All alcohol shall be priced with a label displaying the identification of the premises, and no cans or bottles of beer, cider, lager with an ABV of over 5.5% shall be sold from the premises. This, we believe, will not only allow identification of alcohol sold from the premises, especially if it turns up in the lower gardens, but also deter alcohol abusers, especially due to the limit on the alcohol strength. In addition to these revised steps, Mr Yildirim, as you have heard, is listening to concerns and is now requesting a terminal hour of midnight daily. Although he has confidence in his ability to operate the previously requested hours, he is conscious of the concerns of a 3 AM terminal hour and has been willing to mediate in order to allay these concerns. With reference to the concerns made by the YMCA, it has to be highlighted that alcohol is already available should their residents wish to buy it from the Esso service station in Bath Road, approximately the same distance away from the premises of the proposed off-sales. I would also question whether the staff at the Esso service station are as experienced or highly trained as those who would be at the applicant's store based on his previous premises. Members of the committee, we are also concerned. We are all concerned of the problems with alcohol-related antisocial behaviour within Bournemouth Town Centre. It's imperative that steps are taken to eradicate this and also prevent anything that will add to this problem. However, this should not be dealt with by refusing applications without taking into consideration the skills and the reputation of the applicant and the steps that are offered, especially relating to the proposed location. What is the point of having an operating schedule showing the steps if we're not going to read them and take them into consideration? To do this is contrary to the revised guidance issued by the Home Office. As I recently experienced, Westover Road has become somewhat of a concern due to the numerous vacant premises at a time when few are willing to gamble in the current financial climate. Surely you agree that a retailer who has an unblemished record as a responsible alcohol retailer should be encouraged to invest in the town when so many are turning their backs and closing their premises. Mr Yildirim is such a retailer, and I would respectfully request that you look favourably on his application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Have I got an echo? Why do I have an echo? It's gone again, right. Thank you very much indeed, Mr Ramsey. So now we have questions for the applicant, Mr Ramsey, and I will start with Councillor Flagg. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask, the applicant states that they will label the products.
Sorry, Councillor Flagg, I didn't hear what you said.
Will label the products that they
Products,
sell. Yeah. What concerns me is that it's easy to stick a label on and it's easy to pull a label off. So unless it's printed on the actual product, I don't see that that's really going to make any difference.
So your question would be what type of label is going to be used and is it one that can be removed? Yes. Would we put that
Yes.
to Mr. Ramsey? Yes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Ramsey. If you'd like to answer Councillor Flagg's question. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, it would be the usual labels that you see, price labels. But I would disagree with Councillor Flagg. In my experience as a licensing officer for Dorset Police, we regularly identified cans and bottles that were where there was alcohol-related antisocial behaviour from these labels. If people want to go to the bother of hiding things, they will find a way. But this is certainly something that was very useful in my experience as licensing officer at Poole Division.
Yeah, with respect, I don't think you answered the councillor's question. The councillor's question, I believe, was, do these have capacity to be removed?
Yeah,
and,
yes.
But wait one moment, Mr. Ramsey. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Flagg, because it's very much your question. But I think the councillor was asking, do these have capacity to be removed? And in your experience, have they, in a similar situation or when they've been exercised before, were they removed? Because a label which has capacity to be removed when it's there for a specific purpose, certainly perhaps in the eyes of the subcommittee is not something that could be materially relied on. So if you could just advise us. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Yes, yes, they can be removed. It is the normal, as I said before, it is the normal sticker price label, and it can be removed. But it is my experience as a police licensing officer that this rarely happens, because you have to remember that the person who is buying the alcohol doesn't know why that label is there. They don't care where they buy it from. So it's something that, in my experience, I haven't known them to be removed to hide where they bought it from.
Okay, so we have to assume that the buyer doesn't know why it's there, because we can't know that, but we'll assume that they don't know why it's there. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. Councillor Flagg, any further questions? Welcome to come in at any stage during this period. But do you have another question?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Flagg. Councillor Farr?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I note the proposed, well, a mention of limits on alcohol strength, what's to be sold. But if there's a limit on the alcohol being sold, surely then they're just going to buy more. People are just going to buy more alcohol. Is there to be a limit on the number of, say, cans? Say, I don't, it doesn't seem to make any difference in my mind. I'm just curious how that works. Thank you.
Okay, so we can ask Mr. Ramsey if he can take us through any conditions which have been offered with regard to the limitation of the amount and the alcohol limit. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it has been proved that the alcoholics and rough sleepers and those who want to get drunk quickly, they come into the shop. They ask for the high strength beer, cider, and lager, and quite often they will not go to the shops where the ABV is not round about 7% available, and they will sometimes go for the cheapest as well. And the police regularly ask for conditions on their licences, either sort of limiting the ABV to 5.5% for this specific reason. It has been proved that that's what they go after. So limiting this will really it will deter these people from going to that store, and it does have an effect. And most of them will only buy 1 or 2 cans.
Thank you very much. Any further questions at this time, Councillor Farr?
No, thank you for the explanation. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Ramsey, you've put forward, you had concerns that you felt that conditions were being offered, and you were incredulous as to why those conditions weren't seemed or perhaps were not going to be deemed to deal with the 4 licensing objectives. I wondered then if you'd like an opportunity for you to take the members in detail, because obviously the mitigations are in recognition of the challenges that you face in this particular area with regard to this type of convenience store. So that's been recognised that something needs to be done. So ergo the acknowledgement that there are issues which we need to consider. And I wondered if you'd like to take us through those conditions and why those conditions were so decided to be applied. I think that would help the subcommittee quite considerably. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Yes, certainly. When Mr. Yildirim came to me, I had a look at what the conditions that he had been offered, which were conditions that would have been accepted 5, 6, 7 years ago, but are no longer to be suitable for a premises. I also looked at the location and the concerns from the representations. The first condition, prevention of crime and disorder, is that all front trained to a competent level, including licensing law, and will be trained up to level 2 of the award of conflict management. This is to deal with any customers who may cause problems at the premises and identify at an early stage that there could be a problem rather than waiting till it got out of hand. A refusals book, the normal refusals book maintained and shall be checked and signed by one of the management staff on a weekly basis. It will be kept in the premises and made available for inspection by the licensing, police and other authorities. The incident book shall also be kept at the premises, and what I often advise my clients to do is also list incidents that that are not connected to the premises but happen in the vicinity, just in order that they can say, we saw this and it was not connected to our premises, because sometimes a premises will be used as a landmark. It will have list all complaints received, any incidents of disorder, any faults in the CCTV system, any refusals of sale of alcohol, visits of relevant authorities, all crime reported at the venue, all ejections of customers, and all seizures of drugs or offensive weapons, which hopefully would be more for an on-licence, but it's there anyway. And this log must be checked on a weekly basis by the DPS. The Challenge 25 shall operate at the premises, and what ID can be accepted. And it's something that I'm very strong on with my clients, is to make sure that they are aware of what ID they can accept. The CCTV system is one that really the Dorset Police are very tight on what standard it should be and what it should do. We've covered all that in the conditions, but also taking into mind one of the representations about the rear of the premises being used by drug addicts and alcoholics and rough sleepers. I've made sure that it's highlighted that there's a camera covering the back of the premises as well as the front. All the staff members must be able to download and operate the CCTV system should they be requested by Dorset Police or anyone else, just to make sure that there's no delay on that. It's something that is often a problem, that the police will visit a premises and there's nobody who can download the CCTV. Refresher training shall be provided at least once every 6 months. That's in-house training, and it's got to be documented training. A record shall be maintained of all staff training, and that record shall be signed by the person receiving the training and the trainer. The record shall be kept for a minimum of 12 months and made available for the police, licensing or other authorities. And as I've said, I've also included the single cans. No single cans or bottles of beer, cider or alcohol should be sold within the exception of those over 500 millilitres or over. It's quite common for rough sleepers and that to try and buy one can. So that should help there. There's the labels and also the ABV of 5.5%. Public safety, the need for risk assessments, fire risk assessments and other general health and safety risk assessments, including first aid, be adhered to protect customers and staff. Prevention of public nuisance, no waste will be removed from the premises during the hours of 10 PM and 8 AM. No deliveries to the premises shall take place between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. Staff will encourage customers and delivery drivers to leave quietly and have regards to residents. The outside of the premises will be regularly monitored by not just by CCTV but by staff as well, to ensure that the licensing objectives are upheld and no customers loiter outside the premises. And this is the vicinity of the premises. Any movable furniture will be removed inside the premises after licensable hours. Signs will be displayed at the exit requesting customers to leave the area quietly and have regard to local residents and shopkeepers. No noise generated on the premises or its associated plant. So no noise coming from the premises, shouting, music, whatever. And protection of children from harm. Staff will be trained in accordance with any guidance given by TSSW in relation to all age restricted goods. A proof of age, no sale policy will be adopted and records kept of the training at that premises. Such records will be kept and made available. Challenge 25 signage will be displayed prominently on the premises. Written records of training, subsequent refresher training will be kept for all staff involved in the sale of alcohol beverages, something that is quite lapse on licensed premises, both on license and off license. If there is any deliveries, it will be provided by a reputable company, but I don't believe my client has that in mind. But if so, then ID will be produced by the person receiving the delivery to correspond with the name and credit debit card of the person placing the order. And all persons making delivery shall be instructed to report to the holder or the DPS all occasions when a delivery is refused. And all records will be checked by the DPS manager in charge of the premises at least once a week and shall be signed to that effect. And that is the extra conditions that have been offered.
Okay, and just to thank you, and just to clarify, you believe you're putting forward those conditions to this subcommittee because you are confident that you believe these conditions will upheld the licensing objectives and overcome any issues that may be in the vicinity. So that is your submission, yes?
Yes, I believe that if the applicant abides by them, then he will not add to the problems that are already there.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. Thank you for indulging us, but I think it was very important that we had a good understanding of what conditions and mitigations that you were putting forward and why you were putting them forward in this specific area, because there are certainly some challenges that need overcoming. I'll go back now to my members. Councillor Flagg or Councillor Farr, do you have any further questions? Councillor Flagg?
Yes, please, Chair. I'm just curious as to what the staff will enter into the incident log in terms of all ejections of patrons. You know, how and what information is going to be recorded should there be an incident in the premises.
Okay, so how will yes, I take your point, Councillor Flagg. It's very important, isn't it, that it is written down so it does actually reflect what happened. So how is that going to be recorded? Is that going to be written? Is it going to be voice? What is it going to be? Is there going to be any backup on that? How will that actually affect? Because it's very important that that log, if it was so disposed to grant, is kept for purposes of our responsible authorities. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Yes, it will be a written log, incident log. And what I tell my clients is basically to paint a picture not only for authorities coming into the premises, but they have to bear in mind that it may be in a year's time that they have to go to court and give evidence. And if they do not log the incident properly, then they will forget. So it will be the day and time of the incident, a description, a good description of those who are causing the problem. That should tie in also with the CCTV log and the CCTV, so for the identification. What happened, and not only what happened, but how did the assistant or the shopkeeper, how did it make, and how did they deal with it? and not to make the incident personal, but to identify and give a picture, paint a picture for maybe a magistrate of how it made them feel, and why, if necessary, they called the police. If they call the police, it goes in there as well, that they called the police and what happened when the police attended the premises. And the other thing that I also tell them, and quite often, is don't just leave it after that. Review how you dealt with it to make sure that if it happened again, you learn from that incident.
Okay,
It has to be a very
it's hoped that it will be thorough, I think, is the answer to that, Councillor Flagg. Are you so content?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, my concerns are that they are normally alcohol fueled, and you know, patrons will be antagonistic and aggressive. That's my concern. Thank
Yes,
you.
and your point is well made. Thank you, Councillor Flagg. Any further questions, Councillor Farr?
No, none for me at this stage.
Okay, members do feel that while we're in this section, if you do wish to raise something, just pop your hand up. It's very important that members do raise their questions. So then now we will opportunity for Mrs. Busfield, based on the application and submissions put forward. Do you have any questions for Mr. Ramsey? Thank you.
No, thank you. I don't have any questions at this stage.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Old, you've been very patient, Mr. Old. We do need to be thorough. Do you have any questions at this time?
No problem. I suppose mine regarding the purchase of alcohol is, whilst they can put mitigated measures in place to prevent those that shouldn't be buying alcohol in, what's stopping or to control those that may be buying alcohol for those that are perhaps underage or intoxicated within the vicinity that they may be supplying and doing things in an underhand way?
Thank you very much. So can you take us through proxy buying, please, Mr. Ramsey? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Proxy buying is, as you say, is when others over 18 are buying for youngsters. It's something that I always mention, even when I do the in-house training, is proxy buying, and looking out for people coming into the premises and being aware of people coming into the premises to buy alcohol for youngsters. I ask them to look out for hanging about the premises. Quite often when someone comes into a premises to buy for the youngsters, it may ring an alarm bell on the assistant that the type of alcohol they're buying might not be a type of alcohol that you would expect that person to buy. So it's a case of aware and staying aware, looking around the premises, looking around for people maybe round the corner. Not in this case, it's a straight road. Looking about for people hanging about, maybe across the road, and bearing in mind that that could be happening. Unfortunately, anywhere, if an adult comes in, if you haven't got that suspicion, whether it's Tesco's, Sainsbury's, whatever, if you haven't got that suspicion, then you can't take aware of that. And as I say, it's something that I always mention in my training to the staff.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have, I'm just looking to see in which supplementary we've got two supplementary packs. One is your extra conditions, the other is the police, so it will be in the substantive. Unfortunately, our representative for the YMCA can't be here today, so I'd like to tease out, please, Mr. Ramsey, as if Mrs. Watson were here. Obviously, there are concerns with the vulnerability of many of our clients who will be at the YMCA, and as to the impact that a premises of this sort may have upon them, or the materials that sit within them, and also that there is student accommodation. Now, that would be a lot of young people in a specific area. So what were your thoughts on how you had considered this, obviously, and how to mitigate against any impact on either of those two groups? Thank you.
Yes, it's something that obviously we did take into consideration very much. If the premises was up near the Lansdowne roundabout, where we have got a large number of students there, and put in place offer conditions that will help that situation. As I said, there is, if the residents, some of the residents, the alcoholic residents of the YMCA, if they want to buy alcohol, it's my experience that they will find somewhere to buy it. And as I did mention, there is another service in Bath Road, approximately the same distance away, where if they want the alcohol, they can go there. But it really, having this premises nearby makes it more important that the steps that are offered, the conditions that are offered, are and comprehensive and cover these sorts of the things like of the limit on the ABV of the alcohol, no single cans, the labels. All these things help to make sure that the premises is responsible as it's possible. And I am confident that the steps that have been offered, if carried out, and I'm sure there will be, will make sure that that premises operates in a responsible manner.
Thank you again for iterating that. It wasn't really my question. What I was trying to tease out was that the identification that this establishment, the YMCA, as is stated in Ms. Watson's submission, is that this is a vulnerable group, and it is the placement of a store such as this next to a vulnerable group. And it was to try and find a mitigation that you might be able to give us as to how you might overcome having a premises such as this next to this vulnerable group. If you want to have reference to the submission, which is page, maybe refresh your memories, it's page 39 of the substantive pack. And Mrs. Watson, or Miss Watson, I'm unaware of her marital status, but we'll say Sarah Watson, that's easier. She's concerned about the easy access of low sale alcohol. We've not heard as to the costings of the products. We've heard as to the amount that can be sold, but of course people can go back on a repeated times to pick up more. So it's the costings of the alcohol and the fact that the premise is next to this vulnerable block, a bit like a housing support block Mrs. Watson refers us to. So I think the subcommittee need to be absolutely certain of the type and sensitivity of area where this convenience store is planned to be near, and what are the mitigations that you considered when you were putting this. Now you've got all the usual conditions. I wondered what other factors you might have thought of. Thank you. Yes,
the first thing I'd say is that it's not next door. It is the other side of Westover Road, the far end of Westover Road, and it is, as I've said before, it is as near to the Esso service station as it is to this applicant. The applicant has not in his past done any alcohol promotions, low alcohol promotions. It's not something that he does is alcohol promotions. His aim isn't to sell as much alcohol as possible. It's just have the facility for selling alcohol. He has, as we said, he's the main thing. In my experience, being near a vulnerable premises like this, is to make sure that your premises is run exactly as your conditions, what the steps that you've offered for the conditions, and be a responsible retailer. As I said before, if people want to buy alcohol, I don't want to be condescending, but the people that may go there from the YMCA will usually look for something that will be high strength, and that is covered on here. He's covered everything in the conditions. I don't really know what else he could actually do in that circumstance, but I would imagine that if there was a problem with a premises that sells off sales, I haven't heard, and maybe Mrs. Busfield will be able to tell us about it. I haven't heard of them having serious problems with the other premises that are as nearby that are selling alcohol and off sales. So I believe that my client has covered everything possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. C, it's Mr. Yildirim. Did you have your hand up, or is that a legacy hand? No, so you didn't want to speak. Okay, I just wondered if you wanted to come in there. Okay, Mrs. Almeida, I wonder if I might ask you some advice, please. We're told in Mrs. Watson's submission that it's the second application in as many months, and I wondered whether we were able to look behind that, or if it is not appropriate. Your advice, please.
No, I think we have to look at this case on its own merits and make no reference to the other application.
I just wanted to raise that so that Mrs. Watson understood that we were unable to do so. Okay, that she could be concerned that we hadn't considered those matters. Obviously, we're not able to, but I just wanted that confirmation from you in the public domain. Thank you very much,
thank you,
Mrs. Almeida. It was extremely useful. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. I think, Mr. Ramsey, unless there are any further questions, and just see if our licensing officer, Mrs. Rogers, has any questions for you. Mrs. Rogers?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if there are no further questions, members, from anybody, we will then move on. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. Thank you very much for answering all those questions and your submission. We'll now move on to our responsible authorities and other persons. So our responsible authorities are Dorset Police, and our other person is Mr. Auld. So we'll ask Dorset Police first, and it's Mrs. Busfield who is representing Dorset Police today. Mrs. Busfield, to make your submission, and you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry, but my speaker has just failed.
You're fine, we can hear you.
You're all able to hear me okay, that's super. I'll just make sure I'm on maximum volume, thank you. Okay, but further to our objection from Dorset Police, we won't reiterate anything that we have already included in the application, the supplementary information in support of our representation, because that's, you know, summarised very comprehensively on this additional submission. It is difficult to verify the additional information that Mr. Ramsey has put forward in respect of the background of the operator. And the petition or the letters of support that have been produced by his customers, albeit from a different area of the conurbation.
Just to stop you there, Mrs. Busfield, those letters of support were late on submission, so they haven't been accepted for the purposes of today's hearing. But you've made reference to them, so they'll stand as such. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. But I think we have to be mindful that the application for premises license is for a premises, and it's for premises in a very sensitive area, as has been described time and time again in the additional submissions. And the fact that the operator comes with a good track record, according to the Mr. Ramsey's submission, it's really the least of our expectation of any responsible operator who's applying for a license in, well, any sort of premises license, that we would expect any operator to be robust and mindful and compliant with any conditions of the premises license. So I think that's an expectation rather than, you know, than a bonus or an additional offer. Well, the conditions subsequently offered after the objection that I submitted, again, they're not really any more comprehensive than any that we would hope, expect, or mediate of any new license application. I mean, we take every license application on its own merit, and we've got a track record. I have a track record. My colleagues have a track record of extensive mediation with proposed applicants to ensure that any conditions agreed are relevant and current, let's say, modern almost, if you like. And also enforceable. So again, an offer of, you know, vigilance in the vicinity of the area, or regular checks will be conducted. I mean, these are just very subjective. They're not at all enforceable. How would we be able to challenge if there weren't regular checks? Because my understanding of a regular check could be very different from the applicant's. So again, we would expect
these sort of conditions that have been offered on any application, not just for a premises license application in an area that's just so sensitive. And that goes back to, again, this application. It's an application for a premises license in Westover Road, not a residential area in Parkstone. And the area of Westover Road, as we know, parts of it absolutely beautiful. It is a great tourist attraction. There is, however, a real problem with antisocial behaviour, street drinkers, freeloading in this area. And the objection has been submitted almost reluctantly, because we do endeavour to resolve our concerns before bringing them before the subcommittee by, as I say, extensive mediation with applicants, with which Mr. Ramsey will attest to. And we've mediated many licence conditions to come up with appropriate conditions. However, in this instance, we can't avoid bringing our concerns before the licensing subcommittee simply because of the sensitivities of this particular area. I would like to draw your attention again to the statement by Sergeant Janes, the neighbourhood policing sergeant, who describes firsthand the real challenges that are experienced in this area on a daily basis, certainly exacerbated at certain times of year, but also at the same time, it must be said, fairly consistently, again, as Mr. Ramsey attested to, on a Friday morning, a sunny Friday morning in November, there was still antisocial behaviour in Westover Road. There were street drinkers, rough sleepers, and we see this on a daily basis going about our daily jobs. To have a targeted, dedicated police resource to this specific area, I think just really underlines the particular sensitivities of this area, the different demographics, the businesses, the residents, the housing for vulnerable persons. It is a unique area. It's not Bath Hill, it's not the Lansdowne, it's not Parkstone. It is a unique area. And the impact of the disorder, even low-level crime and antisocial behaviour and street drinking, has such a detrimental impact on residents and businesses, and also visitors to the area. Hence the reason that it was necessary for us to put this application before the licensing subcommittee, because there have been no conditions that could have been offered to mitigate the very real concerns that any new licensed premises in the area would not exacerbate and compound the problems that are already there and exist there already. So we just have to be mindful of the particular sensitivity of the area. And as I say, we've done our utmost to mediate concerns, but we reluctantly bring it before the licensing subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Busfield. It's extremely helpful. With regard to questions, just to pop back to the questions which were put to Mr. Ramsey on behalf of some of our objectors who couldn't be here, I'd just like to say for the record that having read Mr. Corsica's submission, I didn't feel there was anything in there which we had not covered with regard to questioning on his behalf, and the same with Mr. Kinvig for questions that we could put. I'm sure members would have recognised this as well. We're capable of putting to either the licensing officer or indeed the applicant, but certainly different with regard to questions which we may now put forward to our responsible authority. So it wasn't that Mr. Corsico or Mr. Kinev's considerations were not thought of. It was just that there was no further relevance that we hadn't covered when we asked those questions. I hope that's clear. So thank you very much for that submission, Mrs. Busfield. It's now opportunity for members to raise any questions. So I'll start with Councillor Farr. Do you have any questions?
Sorry, sorry, none for me, thank you.
None. And Councillor Flagg?
Likewise, Chair, I have no questions.
I do. And the questions are on behalf of the three objectors who are unable to be with us. And my first thoughts sit around the YMCA and the sensitivities and vulnerabilities that do sit around there. And my second is very much the bid. We heard from Mr. Kinniff, if you want to look at your packs, ladies and gentlemen, members, it's page 41 of the substantive. And Mr. Kinniff takes us through the type of issues that he is facing. He tells us about the Town Ranger team. I wondered about the connectivity between responsible authorities and that Town Ranger team, and how A supports B. And Mrs. Busfield, the concerns that you may have around the ability for bid to continue as they do in that area. I'd be interested to hear, and I'm sure the other members would too. Thank you, Mrs. Busfield.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Butt, may I just defer to Sergeant Gosling to speak
Indeed.
in respect of
Indeed.
the multi-agencies? Thank you.
Oh, multi-agency, yes, of course, our expert in this. Sergeant Gosling, are you with us? He's not with us.
Yep,
He's
sorry.
with us.
Yes,
He is
yes,
with
yes.
us. Sergeant
Yeah.
Gosling, we were, I don't know if you got the question, if you just popped up for a moment. It was with regard to the multi-agency working in the area and how you were interacting, and the deep concerns held by Paul Kinniff from the bid, who obviously working with town rangers, etc., and how that's all dovetailing with regard to your concerns about this application. I'd be interested to hear. I'm sure the subcommittee members will too. We all do.
Absolutely. As with any town centre, we work in collaboration with mainly the local authority, but also with groups such as the Business Improvement District, that's if you like, looked after by Mr. Kinvig. But we also look at working as closely as we can with Pub Watch, Town Watch, Shop Watch groups, all in order that we can pool our resources, which unfortunately, as is no surprise to anyone here, becoming more and more limited. But we do find that working together, we are able to successfully achieve outcomes for the benefit of the whole town, and then for the benefit of all agencies concerned. Throughout the summer, as has been highlighted by Sergeant James, the Operation Fireglow in the Bournemouth Town Centre area is probably the best example. So BCP Council invest heavily in ensuring that we welcome or provide the best and safest environment for those visiting the town centre. So they invest in security for the town centre. In addition to that, the bid provide rangers and other resources as well, again to promote a safe and welcoming town centre. And naturally, Dorset Police provide the neighbourhood policing team and support the Community Safety Accreditation Scheme, the CSAS officers that also exist in the town centre, all designed to come together in their unique roles to promote a reduction in crime and make the nicest, most welcoming town that we can. I think the fact that the bid have come forward on this application, I think is really indicative. We don't see them come forward very much, and naturally they do try and promote business. So going back to a point raised by Mr. Ramsey earlier, it's the part of the bid's responsibility to drive as much business into the town centre as possible, to make it a good commercial environment. And I think the fact that they have made a representation in respect of this matter speaks volumes, in my opinion. Hopefully that answers your question. If there's any further questions for me or Louise, no, I'm happy to take them. Yes,
I think the burning issue is the number, where we're told with regard to the town ranger team, I've been a member of this committee for 23 years. I've chaired it for many years, and I've never seen a statistic such as the one in front of me today. So I am concerned, and I need to ask for verification with regard to this figure. The town ranger team have logged 40 ASB issues between the hours of 9 AM and 5:15 PM, which is obviously their hours. And if 40 have been logged within those hours, my concerns are what is happening out of hours. Mrs. Busfield told us about a cold Friday, November morning, and what we would see there. In fact, Mr. Ramsey his opening statement was that he'd taken a walk and he'd been concerned to see the empty shops and the doorways, which were regrettably filled with our homeless, etc. Mr. Old, I'll bring you in a moment, okay? Mr. Old, yeah, I'll bring you in a moment. Clearly this is an area where we have a business and great deprivation trying to work one in the other. So if we're speaking in those terms, it's the subcommittee trying to get a snapshot, trying to get a picture of actually what's going on. So I wondered whether you'd like to comment on the amount, within a daytime, what's happening at night with regard to those multi-agency working with the bid, etc., etc. If you could just expand on that a little with regard to your expertise in that area.
Absolutely, I think the problems that are experienced during the day and night are very different. It is very, for me, it was invaluable to get that information from the bid around how many incidents they're dealing with during the day. I think that was possibly more than I thought they might, because most of my efforts, if you like, is concentrated on nighttime economy related issues. I think those nighttime economy issues speak for themselves. We do continually have an issue with disorder linked to licensed premises, but I think the performance on that in that regard is far better given the sort of engagement that we're having, in particular with on sales premises, with them being particularly responsible around security. We do notoriously, I think now for the town, come down hard on any venues that don't take care of welfare. So that would really transfer to protection of children from harm, I think, through proxy sales for off sales premises. But we have to bear in mind that during the evening, that fire glow data that was provided by Sergeant James, that is all evening. That's all evening and largely not related to the nighttime economy, if you like, but more linked to just youth disorder that's happening as a location of a particularly problematic location. That really is the fundamental issue that we've got in the nighttime in this location. So not particularly linked to any particular premises, and I know Mr. Ramsey's highlighted the fact that we've got the Bath Road service station up the road, but that is a considerable distance away from the gardens. This particular application is for premises directly across the road from the gardens and would be far more accessible to anybody from the gardens.
Okay, so you having said that, then I suppose the question which I want to put to you on behalf of, I think, the subcommittee is rounding that up, is there's clearly a disproportionately, from the information, the evidence we have in front of us, there clearly is a disproportionately high level of alcohol related crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour in the area. And do you believe that further availability of alcohol would risk exacerbating an already serious problem? I think that's the nub of the question.
Absolutely.
If you could answer us that as a responsible authority, I think
Yes.
that would be extremely helpful. Yep.
100%. 100%. The local inspector, Inspector Thompson, upon receiving this application, they receive all applications. I was absolutely determined that we do everything that we can to not make the problem worse that we and our partners are trying to tackle. He is absolutely of no doubt whatsoever that to grant this license would add to the problems that we're trying to solve.
Thank you. Very helpful statement, and we'll take it under consideration when obviously we're our deliberations, and of course all the comments which we've heard from Mr. Ramsey as well in mitigation of those comments. Now, are there any further questions from members? There are. Councillor Flagg, Councillor Farr. Mr. Old, you have an opportunity. You've actually got a spot where I shall be calling your name and you can raise a question. Okay, so please don't worry. I just deal with members' questions first and then I'll come straight on to you. Okay, Councillor Farr, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that currently the premises is vacant, or it was at least. Has there previously been a licensed premises of this nature, something similar on Westover Road previously, which that we're aware of? Thank you.
Okay, I think that might have been touched upon in the report, but if Mrs. Busfield's able to advise us, can you?
I think I'm probably best deferring to the licensing authority on this matter. I haven't got this historical data. I haven't got this historical data. I do apologise.
No, I wouldn't really expect you to. I think, Councillor Farr, that I think it's stated that there hasn't been anything such as this in the area. I don't remember it. It's a case of was it years and years and years ago, you know, so you want to be thorough. I don't know whether you'd be able to help us, Mrs. Rogers, and if you can't, that's understandable because you weren't aware we were going to pop this one onto you. Are you aware of anything?
I can just check the system and refer back to you. Are you talking about this particular unit?
Yeah, I think the unit in itself, yes. Is that
Not
question in the road?
Not the unit itself, but that particular stretch of road, the Westover Road. Thanks.
Okay, I'll get back to you.
You can indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Farr.
Thank you.
So I'm just looking now to see there are no further hands up from members. Okay. So we don't have Miss Watson or Matthew Corsica to ask questions. So Mr. Old, your opportunity now to ask no, it isn't your opportunity to put your if we finish the questions from the responsible authorities, we now ask you to make your submission on in your own behalf as an other person with regard to this application. Is that clear, Mr. Old, what I'm asking you for?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just following on from our concerns, really, touching on the homeless and rough sleeping, it isn't actually just vacant properties that occurs in. Certainly within our part of the Westover Road area, we routinely find that there are homeless people within certain doorways, sometimes ourselves, but often just further along where there are common entrances for a number of flats and tenants there. Quite often you'll find that they will congregate around those areas because they are slightly protected from the elements and often very intoxicated, can be quite confronting and quite off-putting. We have great concerns that the licence being discussed may well exacerbate these problems that we face often on a daily basis. So that was my main point to make. I think also based on the mitigating measures that are proposed to be put in place are largely based around the store and how they intend to conduct themselves. But beyond those four walls, it's very difficult to control what might go on, and I would therefore say we may find that may negatively impact us as well. So those are my two main points that I wanted to make.
Thank you very much. And that's the impact of the premises that it might have upon the area. Whether the shop is extremely well run, and we would expect that, but it's the impact, you're concerned about the impact that those sales may have upon the area. Yes. Now I must apologise, Mr. Old, because we have responsible authorities and other persons together, you actually both have an opportunity to put forward a submission, and I totally omitted to ask you whether you'd like to put forward your submission. Is there anything else you'd like to add? And if you did have a submission prepared, then please do share it with us.
No.
No, so you are content. I haven't just overlooked you. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. With Mr. Old then having made his point with regard to what he wants to say to us, this is always very difficult when we don't have objectors turning up because it's the requirement of the committee to make sure that we try and ask those questions on their behalf. So we've heard from the responsible authorities. Some questions have been put to Ms. Busfield. The members have asked questions. I think they are content at the moment. So now, Mr. Ramsey, it's your opportunity, if you so wish, to ask questions of the responsible authorities, Mrs. Busfield, and of course, I'm sure Sergeant Gosling will assist if you so wish. So, Mr. Ramsey, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one thing, just to clarify one of the comments that Ms. Busfield made. Are you, maybe I picked it up wrong, but are you saying basically that with an application like this, you will not take into consideration the experience and the expertise of the app or the steps that have been offered. Basically, what I got from what you said was that you would oppose any license off sales in that area.
Okay, Ms. Busfield, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, for fear of repeating myself, we would expect any operator of a licensed premises to have robust credentials and to undertake to promote the 4 licensing objectives. I mean, that's a given. So we understand that you've tried, or your client has tried, to demonstrate that they're an experienced operator, but we mustn't overlook the fact that the license is for the premises, it's not for the operator. And in terms of the conditions that that have been offered, again, they're not exceptional. They're not. Some of the conditions offered have been, as I mentioned before, have been very subjective. You know, we'll undertake to make sure the vicinity is clear, or regularly check things. These are unenforceable. They're very subjective, and it's not what we would necessarily expect of an operator who comes with well, allegedly such experience and a track record.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions, Mr. Ramsey?
No further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Rogers, do you have any questions for Mrs. Busfield, or indeed Sergeant Gosling? I'm sure he can assist if so necessary.
No, I don't. I'm still searching the road.
Okay, you're still having a check, are you? Well, we've got our opportunity, our summing up now, so you have time. Sorry to pop this on you. It's a big ask, isn't it, to have to try and check all of those areas, but we'd be grateful if you could come back with something before we finish.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rogers. Members, are there any further questions for Mr. Ramsey and Mr. Old? Do you have any, Mrs. Busfield and Mr. Old, do you have any further questions for Mrs. Busfield?
I don't.
No, okay. Mr. Ramsey, you're content. Members, you're so content. Okay, then, so if there are no further questions and everybody is satisfied that we've looked in this in depth, I think we've tried to offer as many questions as possible of the salient points with regard to our objectives who couldn't be with us this morning. Very important that we cover those as a subcommittee. So it's now an opportunity for all parties to sum up, and the party who spoke last will go first. So that we will ask then, in fact, it was Mrs. Busfield who was last giving her submission. So Mrs. Busfield, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. My summing up is going to be very concise because everything has been said. I'm not going to repeat myself, but we just have to be mindful that this is the area in which the application is being applied for, or this premises license is being applied for, and the problems that it currently experiences can only be compounded by further alcohol provision.
Thank you very much indeed. So Mrs. Watson isn't with us. Mr. Old, the opportunity to say whatever you would like to say.
Yeah,
anything that you've forgotten, please share with us.
No, I really want to just echo what's already been discussed in the fact that I want to ensure that we mitigate all risk of worsening the already problematic antisocial behaviour that we face on this road. And I'm convinced that this is likely to impact us if this licence is to go ahead.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Corsica isn't with us. Unfortunately, Mr. Kidniff isn't with us. Mr. Gildrum, would you like the opportunity to speak? You haven't had the opportunity. If there's anything you'd like to say at this moment, I think it's only fair that I ask. Mr. Gildrum? Are you with us, Mr. Yildirim? If you want to put your microphone on, Mr. Yildirim. Yep, then we can hear you.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I just want to point out that I've been running off license since I'm 23 years old. 17 years I have experience in this selling alcohol. And the first area that I was selling alcohol was in Boscombe. As everyone knows, in Dorset area, Boscombe is one of the roughest area for rough sleepers, for antisocial behavior and other incidents. During the time that I run that business, we did find that area, as they said it was rough area, but we never had any issues with any customers, any residents, any business owners around that area. So we was following whatever was necessary and taking extra caution of any to protect our customers, residents, my employees, myself. Anyone needs protection. We was trying to do our best. Coming to this Ashley Cross off license, when I got the off license, it has only licensing hours was up till 11 o'clock, and we decided to extend the hours, seeing an opportunity to help residents, people who were working late night hours. We want to, and also in the morning, I am still open from 5 o'clock, but we are serving hours from 6 till 11 between Monday to Thursday. But we managed to extend it, and we are managed very well as well. We had no incidents there. No customers are complaining. No residents are complaining. No businesses are complaining. And it shows that we are doing our jobs as is required from us. And also, when I got this premises as well, I only had 4 cameras just in the store, which I thought I needed to put more to protect my customers, my residents area, my neighbors, my business owners. They are my neighbors, so I had put 12 cameras, even though I didn't need it. Even the post office, there's an alleyway around I put a camera there as well, just to cover all area. If in future any of the police officers or any of my residents had a problem, which we did, they asked us if they will have any camera footage that we can help them, which we did. So we are on this area. We believe on Westover Road. We believe I went there as well, saw everything, that the few rough sleepers on the empty premises. I mean, I love Bournemouth. I went to London to get married and then come back to Bournemouth because I love Bournemouth. I can't get away from Bournemouth. And I love doing business in Bournemouth. I love living in Bournemouth. I mean, I know there's a problem in the town centre. We are aware of it. But by putting this premises there, I think we will put quality to the area, not cause problem there. Because we are aware of the situation. We are aware of who to sell, who not to sell. We will bring quality to that area rather than causing problem. I mean, if you give us a chance, that you will see, but if you don't give us a chance, that you will see that area was dying, and it is going that way. We should fight for the area, not be scared of the area. If we keep saying we got rough sleepers, we got problem in this area, and people will be scared to make any investment to that area. I'm myself, I'm not scared to go into that area because I know we can manage it well. We can manage it well, and we can do better things into that area rather than causing problem to that area. And I respect all the concerns that residents, business owners, councillors, police officers, I do respect that. But if a chance given to us, we will not cause trouble there. We will bring quality to that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rashid. I'm really glad that actually I did give you the floor, because I think it was very important that you were able to tell us that and share that with us. So thank you very much for doing that. I hope that that's assured you that we absolutely wanted to hear from your point of view and where you were coming from and some of your reasoning and mitigation. So I hope you feel that you've had that moment. And thank you very much for sharing with us. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Ramsey, you now have the floor with regard to your summation.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, the problems with alcohol-related antisocial behaviour within Bournemouth Town Centre. It's imperative that steps are taken to eradicate this and also prevent anything that will add to this problem. However, this should not be dealt with by refusing applications without taking into consideration the skills and reputation of the applicant. That's where I dispute what the police say, and the steps that have been offered, especially in relation to the proposed location. And I dispute what Mrs. Busfield says about the conditions not being robust. In fact, she's referred to my conditions as being robust in the past. I feel that they are robust, and I feel that they are suitable for that area. To do this is contrary to the revised guidance to not take it on its own. As recently experienced, Westover Road has become somewhat a concern due to the vacant premises at a time when people are not willing to take the gamble and invest, as Mr. Yildirim said. I've also got to highlight again that the neighbourhood sergeant's statement that he did not list a single incident related antisocial behaviour. They were all mostly, if anything, drugs related. Surely you agree that a retailer with an unblemished record, such as Mr. Yildirim, should be encouraged to invest in the town when so many are turning their backs. He is such a retailer, and his businesses are run well, and I would respectfully request that you look favourably on his application. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Ramsey. I'm just making notes, so if you just bear with me one moment. Thank you very much. Mrs. Rogers, you very kindly, you have managed to find out that information. So I don't know if you want to sum up, but you might want to share the information you kindly found for us. Thank you. Oh, you're on mute, Mrs. Rogers.
Sorry. There were which were Westover News, but it didn't have an alcohol licence. And the only other one was a recent application made for Seaside Mini Market, but that was recently refused. Okay,
I hope that helps members with regard to background. And thank you for raising that, Spar. It's always good to, Councillor Parr, it's always good to have a broad church of understanding of the area. So that said then, thank you very much for those summaries. We'll now conclude our hearing. And at the end of this meeting of the full subcommittee hearing, we will adjourn in private with our legal advisor and our clerk, and we will deliberate. And notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day on the last day in which the hearing was held, in accordance with the regulations, and that is today. And the notification of the decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. So I'll now ask our legal advisor to explain the right of appeal. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The right of appeal is that if members decide to refuse the application or attach conditions to the licence which the applicant does not agree to, the applicant may appeal to the Magistrates' Court within a period of 21 days, beginning with the day that the applicant is notified in writing of the decision. Any other person who's made a valid representation may also appeal to the Magistrates' Court within the 21-day period if aggrieved by the decision made.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Almeida. So that is our hearing at a close. I'd just like to thank everybody for their contributions today. Very sensitive, very difficult, a challenging application, but we've heard very comprehensively, I think, from everybody. Everybody's had the chance to tell us what they feel and to give us the information they would like us to consider. We'll now take thank you very much for your attendance, and we'll take a short adjournment now to prepare for our next application. And Mrs. Cutler, if it's acceptable to you, we'll resume within 15 minutes. And I would ask, please, that the live stream now end. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Michelle, have we got our applicant in?
I'm just admitting in now, Chair.
Thank you.
There we go. I can confirm that we're ready to go when you are.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Good. Is it still good morning? Yes, it is. Good morning, Mr. Fowler. The voice you can hear is the chairman, Councillor Jude Butt. You're very welcome, and we'll start proceedings in just a moment. So our objector hasn't turned up. So when you're ready, Michelle, thank you. Hang on, I've got a radio in the background. Dave, you got radio on? Can you stop Alexa, please, in the kitchen? Right, okay, ready?
Okay. I can confirm that we are live as of now. Thank you.
Thank you. So welcome back to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, Wednesday, the 9th of November 2022. And we're moving on now to the second item of the substantive, which is number 6, which is an application for premises licence at Parliamentary, 7 Southbourne Grove, Bournemouth. And an application has been received for a new premise licence for the premises known as Parliamentary, 7 Southbourne Grove, Bournemouth. This matter is brought before the Licensing Subcommittee for determination. I'd like to introduce themselves and state their role, and elected members, please your ward. My name is Councillor Jude Butt. I'm chair of the Licensing Committee and also chair of the subcommittee for the purposes of today's business. And my ward is Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Flagg, member of the Licensing Committee on the BCP Council and representing Burton Grange ward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flagg. And Councillor Farr.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Dwayne Farr for Kinston Ward and member of the subcommittees today. Thank you.
We also have our 2 reserves who are on their phones, and thank you very much for standing by. Councillor Kelsey and Councillor Toby Johnson, you are not needed. We're all present and correct, but thank you so much for being our reserves today. It's much appreciated. So now we have Mr. James Fowler.
Hi, good morning. Can you,
I would like to introduce yourself, Mr. Fowler.
oh yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm James Fowler. I'm the owner proprietor of Parliamentary, and also Larder House, which is based across the road. So that would come up in the topic surely, and also got a restaurant called Tewa Tapas in Southbourne High Street.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fowler. We don't have Mr. Stoker, our objector. Mrs. Cutler.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Cutler and I'm the Licensing Subcommittee Clerk for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Almeida.
Good morning. I'm Mary Almeida, Legal Advisor to the Subcommittee.
Thank you. And Sarah Rogers.
Hello, Sarah Rogers, Senior Licensing Officer, BCP Council.
Thank you very much. So I'll just everybody who's given the notice of intention to speak has been identified, and if anybody wishes to withdraw any representation, to do so now. I can see no hands, so we are content. Just to remind people, please, that all questions, please, are to come through the chair and that there will be no cross-examination of parties. So with that said, thank you very much, Mrs. Rogers. Would you like to present your report?
Thank you. This is an application made by Parliamentary Limited for a licence to permit recorded music from 7 AM to 11 PM and the off-sale of alcohol between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM each day of the week to enable the premises to host cheese and wine tasting events and other private events. As a result of the consultation, 2 representations have been received on the grounds that to grant the application would undermine the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective. No representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. Dorset Police have agreed conditions with the applicant which will be imposed on the licence should it be granted, and these are set out at Appendix 3. Should this application be granted and the applicant fail to operate in accordance with the licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any of the responsible authorities or any other person may request a review at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rogers. So are there any questions, please, for Mrs. Rogers on points of fact? We did have one which arose, Mr. Fowler, which was the discrepancy we believed in the address named on the application, which was 7 Southbourne, and the application being for 7, but we've worked it out that that is indeed your registered address. So We managed to decipher the difficulty there. So just to point that out, which is a point of fact with regard to paperwork. So are there any questions or points of fact for Mrs. Rogers? Councillor Farr?
Not at this point, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flagg.
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Fowler, do you have any questions on points of fact with regard to the summation? No, thank you very much. I don't think there's any questions on points of fact with regard to our objector that members need to raise at this point. So now it's your opportunity now, Mr. Fowler, to put forward your submission with regard to your application. You have the floor.
Okay. Sorry, can you just give me 10 seconds? Sorry, I just got a staff member coming through.
Busy gent trying to run his business and attend a meeting. Okay. Are you okay? Yes. Right. Carry on, Mr. Fowler. You have the floor.
Okay. Sorry, just explaining what we're intending to do with the premises. So obviously it's effectively just a cheese shop delicatessen, and our key objective is essentially to be able to offer the local shoppers alcohol to take away. So we're going to put a selection of local wines, local spirits, and as well as that, alongside host like cheese pairing evenings. So whether it's local beers or like wines again. So effectively, it's definitely a retail like high street shop. I guess in question to the hours in terms of what we asked for. In terms of the music's just background kind of music that you'd have in any other shop retail space. So it's not going to be anything dramatical or that's what we've had through the complaint. And in terms of the alcohol, it's just that our operating hours, we generally open from 8 o'clock every day. So we run 7 days a week. And I've put the extended hours in there just for these occasional kind of pop-up events that we will do, like a cheese and wine evening over there. So it's just to kind of allow that without having to apply for TENS every time to extend that licensing. But our general day-to-day week is 8 till 6, Monday to Saturday, then a shorter day on a Sunday.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you. So opportunity now for members to ask questions with regard to your submission. So Councillor Flagg, have any questions?
At this point, Chair, no. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Farr?
I did have a question, but it's been answered by the applicant.
Okay. So my questions, I think, are based around our objector's letter. Our objector's not able to be with us today, so it's only fair that we try and represent him as a subcommittee, Mr. Fowler. So we have our objector's submission. You said there were 2. Was there a second? Yes, there is. So we are talking about, that's redacted. So I take it that the first letter is from our objector who's not able to be present. Or am I wrong, Mrs. Rogers?
I'll just see the order that it's in.
Just to be helpful. Well, I think what we'll do is we have 2 objection letters. We'll look at them in the generality rather than the specifics, because they raise the issues which obviously we would want mitigated with regard to any grant of any licence, were we so disposed to do so. So there are some points which have been raised by the objectors, and these mainly sit around the narrow pathway, which is immediately opposite the bus stop. And we can see that on the plan, and that forms part of the curtilage of your premise. Is that correct, Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Yes, it is indeed, right. Litter bin services, a box. Now, I'm intrigued about this model cow. Are you going to tell us about this model cow, which is outside the premises when open? And how, is this an abstractive model cow, or what part does this model cow play? Would you like to advise us on that?
It's purely, we put it there just for entertainment for kids to walk past, and they generally take photos with it. But it doesn't come out any further than our gates. Well, occasionally my staff do, but we always push it back. But yeah, effectively just a large half-size cow, effectively.
And it's not obstructing the path in any way? No. It's not obstructing, no, right, okay. No. Okay. So this particular complainant talks of, I think it's more concerns about obstructing this narrow pathway do seem to be within this letter. The large barrels that are, it's said, are placed right at the edge of the pavement. It means effectively closing the pavement off to those who are walking, etc., and causing constrictions.
That's
so,
sorry.
Go, no, that's fine. So would you like to advise us a little on that and just take us around your premise with regard to that narrow pathway?
So that's for the larder house they're referring to.
Okay, and does that impact upon this application?
Well, it shouldn't do. It's completely different premises. And,
but they don't, so there's no crossover. The one that what I'm trying to ascertain is where is this particular narrow path on the plan? Yeah, could you take us?
High Street.
Let's have a look at the plan, shall we? We've got. Do we have a plan? We have a plan, do we not? Conditions, representatives received. Let's just find the plan. So Appendix 2. Let's look at the plan. I'm wanting to be taken around your premise. So the premise applied for is in red. Yes, Mr. Fowler?
Yeah, I can't actually see it at a second, but
would you like to put it up? Okay, so would you like to advise us as to which path the objectors are talking about?
If it's in relation to the barrels out the front, that's larder house. We don't have any barrels out the front of the cheese shop, and I could. I don't know if you can. Well, could turn my computer around and show you the High Street into at events that we do have, you know, we private tends for the larder house. We do have a bit more of a presence on the High Street for those. Well,
okay, well, what I'll do then is I'll ask our licensing officer, Sarah, could you assist the committee in just ascertaining as to where this narrow path is, which is mentioned?
I'm not familiar with it. Looking at that plan, but I do know, like Mr. Fowler said, that doesn't relate to these premises. It's across the road at the larder house.
That's helpful. That's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so we can.
Chair, I don't know if I can assist because I do know the area.
That would be very helpful, Mrs. Almeida. Thank you.
So outside Parliamentary, there is a bus stop and there's a pavement that goes in between, whereas the larder house is the other side of the road. So anything with regards to the larder house doesn't impact on Parliamentary.
Oh, that's very helpful. Right. Okay. So we have, I hope, satisfied ourselves that the obstructions which are thought to be present are indeed nothing to do with this application. I'm looking at there's the same concerns in the second applicant. So I don't have any further concerns with regard to that particular item. Looking at the conditions, can we look at the conditions Appendix 3? Do you have a condition in there which provides for the removal of any bottles, etc.? Do I remember seeing that, Mr. Fowler? Would you like to advise us?
In terms of, sorry, bottles?
Yes, the disposal of bottles, timings.
Yeah, there is a timing thing on the appendix. I think it was not after 11 o'clock and not before 7 o'clock in the morning, if I recall.
So it's 7 to 11. Okay. Is that correct, Mrs. Rogers?
The conditions in Appendix 3 were the conditions that were agreed with Dorset Police, and they don't usually deal with waste disposal.
No, but it's the noise nuisance concern I have.
Yeah, well, there weren't any representations from Environmental Health. Okay. And I'm just quickly looking at the application to see what Mr. Fowler has offered.
Yeah.
And he's put himself rubbish bins and waste removal not to be moved after 11 o'clock PM or before 7 AM.
Yeah, I just couldn't find it. Thank you very much indeed. I thought I had read it last night. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. Fowler. Members, any further questions for Mr. Fowler? Councillor Flagg, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask Mr. Fowler how many seats or covers he has in the premises, please?
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
None. As I said, it's a retail space. So when we will do these cheese and wine events, it'd be more like a stood up, like people come in and we give them a glass of wine and have a little cheese platter. Any permanent seats or tables in there.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that.
That's helpful.
And the only
Go
other point that I've noticed, Chair, is the applicant has put on the application East Dorset District Council, and we are in fact BCP Council. That's page 53 of the application.
Right, is that Mrs. Rogers? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not looking at numbered pages. Whereabouts are you looking?
Page 53.
What document?
The application.
It's J, item J of the application.
Oh, that's the issuing authority of Mr. Fowler's personal licence. So that's correct.
Right. Okay.
That's
thank
not
you.
the premises, Councillor Flagg. It is confusing. That's actually the personal part of that. So that's all in order. Thank you for that confirmation.
Thank
That's
you,
helpful,
Chair.
Councillor
Thank
Flagg. Councillor Farr, do you have any questions?
Yes, my question was just to clarify the layout with the map that we're given. It may not be so much for the applicant. Sorry, just a sec. So so I can see we've got the so that's the premises, which is in red.
Yeah.
Then there's the green smaller part, whatever that is. Then there's the blue part, which I'm guessing that backs onto another premises, onto the next street. Would that be right? Or just
Yes, as it's a
don't quite
public
understand
meeting.
the layout.
Yeah, as a public meeting, Mr. Fowler, it'd be very helpful if you'd like to take us through. You've got the red outline for the application. The blue outline is the larder house, or the green outline is the larder house. Which is which? Mrs. Almeida, can you help us? Okay, your mic's off.
Yes, sorry, Chair. None of those are the larder house. The larder house is actually across the road. What number is it, Mr. Fowler?
Larder house is number 4 and parliamentary is number 7.
Yes, so it's across the road on the plan between 2 and 6 is the larder house.
We have you. So the outline in blue and green is just absolutely incidental, happened to be on that plan just to submitted to show us where the premise was. Is that correct, Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Yes, right. Okay, so we don't need to make any mind to the fact that we have a large blue outline, a large green outline. There's no relevance, which I think we needed to have clarified. Thank you, Councillor Farr. Yes, that's fine. So that is onto the main road. So my question is, thank you very much for that. With your cheese and wine party, people will come along and they'll want to vape and smoke. What arrangements do you have in place for that? Outside the premises? Outside the
premises. If they were to smoke, they'd obviously have to go out the front of the building onto the main high street. But obviously there's bins out there to collect any ash or but again, we wouldn't allow any big gatherings out the front. These events would only be, probably have like 10 to 15 people there at the maximum anyway.
I understand. So it's something that can be managed by the staff.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So, Mrs. Rogers, do you have any questions for Mr. Fowler?
Yes, I just had my hand up just to point out that the layout of the premises is actually the last page of the application form. Not sure of the page. If you wanted to see how the premises were laid out,
yes,
rather than going by the location plan. And apart from that, there's nothing further I'd like to add. Thank you.
That's really useful. Thank you. Yes, I can see what the interior looks like. I was more interested in the exterior and the impact upon the licensable objective, which is actually being raised. Yes, I'm quite happy with that. Is everybody content with that that plan? There's no further questions to be raised with regard to that. Councillor Farr, Councillor Flagg? No, right, okay. We do have our objector who would be here and would be, we hope, raising his issues. He's not here. We've looked at the both objections, and I think that the matters which we were capable to be raised have been raised and answered and dealt with by you, unless there's anything further, Mrs. Rogers, you have to comment on with regard to that.
No, I've no further comment, thank you.
Thank you very much, that's helpful. We aren't able to do questions of other persons because we don't have our objector here, but we've endeavoured to do our best to cover those within the short written text that we do have from our objectors. So that said, this is now an opportunity for parties to sum up with regard to their application. The party who spoke last to go first, so Mr. Stoker wasn't able to be with us. So Mr. Fowler, you have the floor. And you have the doorbell. Did you need to answer that?
That's okay. You can sorry, yeah, so you can see through that. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Okay. Effectively, yeah, the applicant is for my cheese to sell bottles of local alcohol to kind of go with our cheese and charcuterie selections. Especially kind of the application's gone in now just because we've applied for quite a few tenders over the last couple of years just to be able to allow us to do such things, but just to kind of save that permanent application of the tens, just to add an extra element to the recount after Christmas can buy those products to take home and enjoy. But alongside that, I'll see a few kind of, there will be a couple of times a month where we invite customers to come and enjoy like a cheese and wine tasting or cheese and local beer tasting. Just so we can get people to taste our products in store.
I understand, that's really helpful. Thank you very much. Mrs. Rogers, do you have anything further to add?
No, I don't, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Fowler. So I'll now conclude the hearing and the subcommittee will adjourn in private with our legal advisor and our clerk to deliberate. And notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided in the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day on the last day in which the hearing was held in accordance with our regulations, and that's today. And notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal. And I will ask a legal advisor, please, Mrs. Almira, if you will advise us with regard to the right of appeal. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If members or attach conditions to the licence which the applicant does not agree to, the applicant may appeal to the Magistrate Court within a period of 21 days, beginning the day with which the applicant is notified of the decision in writing. Any other person who has made a valid representation may also appeal to the Magistrates Court within 21-day period if aggrieved by the decision made.
Thank you very much indeed. So thank you, Mr. Fowler, for attending. And thank you, officers, for your support and advice. And I will now close the meeting and ask our clerk to end live stream. Thank you very much.